let's come to some conclusions now about our investigation into what is truth, what makes certain statements true. And remember, our concern related to moral statements in particular. That is, we have this feeling where a lot of people at least think that statements like female genital mutilation is morally wrong. The truth of statements, moral statements like that one, or all moral statements, is relative to a group of people. And that is contrasted with claims like the earth is not flat, which they say what makes that true or false doesn't depend. It's not subjective. It doesn't depend on what people think, but rather that second one, it's objective. That is, there doesn't matter what people believe, that one is true. And our example, considering the proposition that Legum can break the board with his bare hand, that one looked for the same reasons that moral claims looked like their truth was relative to groups of people or groups of people. It looked like number 3 was relative in that way also. But I think we finally came to the conclusion after my little experiment that even though at first we thought that the truth of number 3 was relative to groups of people, it really isn't. And the reason it isn't, and now I'm going to come to some conclusions about truth, is that truth is only objective. That is, what makes something true, or when we say something's true, what we're saying is something that's known as the correspondence theory of truth, and I should give you the footnote. Not all philosophers think this is correct. In fact, there's a substantial number of philosophers as smart and smarter than me who think that this theory of truth is not correct, although to me it seems kind of trivially true, and I think our example leads some credence to thinking that. But what the correspondence theory of truth claims is that a proposition, a statement, is true just in case, if and only if, it correctly describes the way the world is. Number 2, which we didn't have any questions, that was what made that true was the way the world is. What made number 3 true was not what people believed, but rather the way the world is. And at least there are a group of people, and I have to say it's certainly not the only opinion that philosophers have about it, is that moral statements also, what makes them true are moral facts. That is, they correctly describe the way the world is. So now let's roll back to an earlier slide and take a look, because we looked at pairs of propositions. Okay, now our pairs of propositions, the first 2 were factual statements, and we said, gee, the truth is objective. With regard to taste statements, we said that it looks like the truth is relative, and I think I would interpret that, I would make a different claim. In terms of the belief statements, notice that they were kind of 2 different statements. The statement Smith believes the earth is flat is talking about one guy, Smith. Jones is talking about another person, Jones. She believes that it's not flat. Smith believes that it is flat. So that's where, but the 2 don't contradict each other. 2A and B do contradict each other, and it looks like the truth of those are definitely relative. And then we got to the pair number 4, and because they were moral statements, we said, and because there was substantial disagreement, like there was in the case of 2A and 2B, that the truth of those was relative. But given our conclusion now, I think there's an easy way to explain it. 1A was true, 1B false, and what determined that is the way the world is. With regard to our taste statements, our aesthetic statement, the best flavor of ice cream is vanilla, or the best flavor of ice cream is chocolate, I'm inclined to think and maybe this is because of my view of aesthetics, but at least when it comes to that, that neither of those statements is true. That is, there is no best flavor. Choices of flavor are merely expressions of individual taste. So the only thing that could be true was, Legum's best flavor of ice cream is vanilla or chocolate, whichever one it happens to be. I happen to like both of them, so I don't know if I could say. And the reason it looks relative is the same kind of thing with regard to the psychological propositions, right? The earth is flat, the earth is not flat, clearly contradict each other. But we see what the statements are saying is one person believes one person believes the other. It's not earth-shattering, and furthermore, it doesn't tell us about whether the earth is flat or not. And I'm at least willing to draw similar conclusions about moral statements and about truth in general. But I'm the first one to admit, and we'll get back to this, that when it comes to ethical relativism, some people have the view that there are no facts in the world that correspond to it, and that ethics, all of ethical judgments, all ethical statements are the truth is of all of them, of each of them, is relative. And we'll come back to talking about that when we talk about moral theories in general.